Everyone faces questions and decisions that require insight and answers as we move forward personally, professionally, and corporately in all areas of this thing we call life in America today. Hello, this is Joe Schofield, and I invite you to tune in every Monday evening from 6 to 7 p.m. as we talk together and hear from key leaders of all ages and backgrounds about your questions. Interesting, informative, intuitive, but always encouraging. Tune us in on BBS Radio Network.
Join Pastor Joe and co-hosts Ron Greer, Dr. Paul Hall, Stephanie Thayer, and Dr. Craig Thayer in Raising Expectations.
Hey, it's Monday night, ladies and gentlemen, and we're so glad you tuned in, Raising Expectations, and hope you had a great weekend and an excellent Monday to start your week. And as you know, Raising Expectations, we're on the air because we want to share with you things that you talk about, things that you write me about, things that we all share from our lives, and most of all, hopefully, the joy of knowing that Jesus is in every single one of those things as you turn to him and he guides you each day. So nobody can raise your expectations like the Lord Jesus Christ when you commit your life. So it's exciting, really is. You know, we've got a great team on the program. These folks are just a blessing me each and every week. I want to, again, introduce them very quickly to you, and we're going to go ahead and get into the program tonight. I'm going to start, as I always do, on the West Coast in Lompoc, California. And we're going to see there that Dr. Paul Hall is with us tonight. Dr. Paul is a retired pastor. He's a teacher. He's a great man of God, and people love him all over the West Coast, I tell you, and I'm one of them. So he's a very special man. You'll know as you get to know him better. He's working on some stuff for us. You're going to see later on. It's going to be neat. So good to see you, Paul.
Good to see y'all.
Okay, see, good rhyme there. Boy, we had practiced that. That worked out real good.
That was great, wasn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so now to use that Dallas Cowboy Frank Roberson. Look, there we go. Hey, guys and ladies and gentlemen, I should say, let's move back to the East Coast. Actually, the South, which is the south part of the East Coast, because we're going to be in Georgia. And there we have Steph Thayer and her husband, Dr. Craig Thayer. And Steph, as you well know, is the world's greatest when it comes to health and well care and taking care of yourself, what to eat, how to do it, how to exercise. And it all comes from her relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ. And he put it together, and she just helps you stay that way and get better and better every day. She writes a lot of good things on the internet. So go to our website and check out the web pages for everybody, their websites, and see what they're doing. And follow Facebook and other things, and you'll be able to see what she puts up. Many of you saw the commercial she put up this week, kind of the story. And boy, thanks for the notes I got on that. I'll share those with everybody later. It was a real blessing. So also, Tank is a neurosurgeon, general surgeon.
Not your brain, but all like this section. You don't want to see him unless you're dying, and then you do want to see him.
Then you do. I always think of the trauma side when he was doing that. Yeah, but he can handle anything. Yeah, he's good. If you got a problem, he's the one to go. I'm going to write a song for each of you and bring them in on the program with a guitar one of these nights. It's going to be really funny. But when just beware when Tank is there. You're safe and sound, and keep going with the rest of this good song. You'll like it. Anyway, so Stephanie is they are in Georgia, in Dalton, Georgia, which is right there in the Chattanooga area of Georgia. So they came from California, but they're on the East Coast now and the South, and taking care of Georgia and all those areas for us. So if we go from Georgia and we head back this way, if you listen in the background, you can hear Ron singing, Georgia, Georgia. There you go, Ron, get ready. So Ron, our favorite pastor.
Georgia on my mind.
There he is.
You have a good voice, Ron.
Yeah, betcha. Yeah, we're going to start a singing group.
Oh,
Yeah, Ron Greer is he's a pastor. He's done so many things to bless so many people in many states. He just came back from speaking in Wisconsin, a lot of other places. He is with Man in the Mirror. He's a counselor, a discipler. So he's a man who helps men become men, which is kind of where our show is tonight. What we're looking at, we're going to see a little bit tonight. We have coming in with us tonight Lane Davis. An outreach, and something might have come up because we were set to go. I had questions and everything, and he may be dialing in pretty quick. But in the meantime, we've got a great team right here, and what we're going to do is a little different tonight. You guys ready? Let's try this since it's all family. All of you tune in, listening and watching. You're part of the family, right? Gotcha. Okay, we are. They all said yes. Yeah, right. So we're gonna kick this ball like Ron said before. Still tickles me when I think about that night. Ladies first, right? So we're gonna pitch this over like we said to Stephanie, and Stephanie had something. She had some words she wanted to share, and we're gonna go that direction and see how we might relate back to you as you request that. Stephanie, take it away.
So for any of you that run anything, things don't always go as planned. And so we were joking beforehand because I don't know, we don't know. And that's life sometimes, right? There's miscommunications. And so hopefully all is well with him, but they were joking that I could do an entire hour lecture on what men should be, what they are looking for in church. And I said, I actually have something to say because I have 2 teenage sons still at home. And so I shared with them about this show a couple weeks ago. And I said, I notice you boys rarely sing in church. And they're both very musical. One loves to sing and one doesn't. And so one sometimes will sing. And they basically told me they thought it was pointless. And I said, well, what do you do with that time? And the older of the ones at home said, I pray the entire time. So that's great. I said, what if you could make church, what would you do? And he actually had some great ideas. He said, you know what I would do? I would have 2 different areas of the church. And you'd have one where you're learning. You need to be educated. And it's kind of like a small group. Like you have a leader, but it's more interactive. He's like, that's what I would do. And then the other ones that know some of this information, they would be in a group about discipling. Because we as a church, we're not telling people to go out and share this with others and how to share the message and deliver it. And he's 17.
wow.
So that's a really good idea. He goes, I would like that. I'd like to be in the disciple class. And I said, I think you should go talk to our pastor. And he kind of looked at me, which I think it would resonate with him, but he has a very good point. So that's what I wanted to
That's
start
a good
with.
parenting there someplace, Sheriff. That's good parenting there.
There you go. There you go.
I don't know. I mean, they surprise you. They notice a lot more than you think they do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I mentioned before, one of our new initiatives and focuses at Man in the Mirror is this idea of spiritual fathers. It's we've launched a thing called 10,000 Spiritual Fathers, and it's primarily to address the sort of the wave of young people leaving the church. They statistically, I think I mentioned these before, about 96% of the young men in church say that they're less religious now than any other time in their life. They say that church really doesn't have any relevance to them. That most of them don't find, like your son said, right? There are things that do not speak to them, and most of the things that don't speak to them. Simple stuff. Even we try to get churches to even look at simple things like just what the aesthetics of your church. What does it look like? If I walk in and I have mauve carpet and I've got pretty light green walls and I have a whole praise and worship team of 10 women and 1 guy on the drums, everything there says I'm not welcome here. It's not this is not for me. It's not. They're not geared toward me. If I walk in and there are women greeting me at the doors and it says to a guy, well, it's not really relevant to you here. But there are a number of things like that. And even, you mentioned singing. And some of the things I sort of work with young guys on and try to work with some of the churches, pastors and worship leaders. If you're going to sing songs, all right, don't have the sopranos and altos leading the songs.
Mm-hmm.
Most guys can't sing that high. It's a simple thing, and it's like night and day to them. I'm not singing three octaves higher. And what guys would do is they'll just stop. They won't sing. If
Well, that said, I wish during that time for those, because we talked about worship and what does worship mean, and that's a form of worship. So I wish there was a whole area for praying, and our church does have that. Different churches kind of have it set up different, but I'd rather just go pray and be prayed over. And there's a gentleman at the church that they lovingly call the OG, the original gang. He's 84. And the first time we came to this church, he turned around and he said, "Can I pray over you, young men?" And they said, "Yes." And he prayed with them sometime during the service. And apparently he spoke in tongue, which is not really, they've seen it, but it's not a big exposure thing. And then we left and they said, "Mom, he prayed over us. He was so awesome. We want to be like him," because he was so bold and positive and really engaged with people at the church. And so he's gravitating towards that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, if you think about men, period, all right, if the things that appeal to men in society, you look at sports, you look at military organizations, you look at hunting, okay, so what do they have in common? There is a sort of a task, there's a battle, there's something there to sort of engage and win, right? So it's if there's something that engages a guy, then he responds. The older guy turning around praying for these young guys says, "Oh, there's someone who actually noticed me and actually did something for me. In other words, you invited me in, but you added some value for me in this experience." So and that appealed to them. Well, one of the things one of the things we're trying to get churches now to do is find older guys who've been through life and got some scars. They go alongside me, intentionally reach out to a number of young men or one young man, and then ask that young man a number of questions and offer to meet with them, to walk them through this battle and this journey. Because if you think about it, I mean, you got a 17, 18-year-old. Okay, they're in that kind of prime spot between full adulthood and childhood. They don't fit in either one of those. And the question in their mind is like, wait a minute, what's ahead for me? What's the meaning of life? And, what's the meaning of all these other things I'm involved in? Well, I mean, someone comes along and says, "Listen, I can walk you through that, alongside your parents." Now, unfortunately, in most cases, probably somewhere around 25 to 30% of every young man you see in a church grew up in a fatherless home. So he's never had some guy to kind of show interest in him at all and to walk him through anything. So they respond to that. So the thing is getting men to engage in this intergenerational discipleship and mentoring, where older men intentionally reach out to younger men and say, "Okay, what does it look like to be a Christian man in the workplace, in my community? What's it look like to be a Christian father?" Or, guy's married, he's got a wife and a couple of kids. He's sort of just going about off the fly. He doesn't, no one's taught him. He's watched television and movies. None of that stuff makes any sense. And somebody say, okay, somebody needs to come along and say, "Hey, son, listen, I can show you where all the holes are. I can show you how I got all these scars. And so you can avoid those things." Yeah, and it's amazing the response from young men, because that's when we talk to them. It's what they tell us over and over again. There's no relevance there to me. It doesn't address what I'm facing every day in my life. So, I mean, okay, yeah, I like singing. Yeah, they like the whole idea that some of the sermons sound good and neat, but it's like, okay, but this is what I'm dealing with tomorrow morning when I go to work. This is what I'm dealing with inside my own head when I'm looking at my kids and looking at my wife, and I'm biting my nails trying to figure out, are we going to make it? Are my kids going to survive? I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. It's good, Ron. I think when we shifted from Sunday school to Bible fellowships, which is more than a semantical name, they tried to do it so you could have both flip back and forth, because I'm with you 100%. And I think sometimes when you look at worship, if you go back in time and you look at worship, we were forever doing this. My first major church where I pastor was going on the West Coast here. Man, it was a big deal at that thing. Take the denominational name down, get rid of all this, get rid of that, get rid of that. Everybody wanted remember, Ron, the traditional, and everybody wanted the contemporary. And so we worked as a staff trying to do what Ron's saying, really hard. Had a staff, a good sized staff there, and everybody was on their knees about it. And we held back from the 2 services for quite a while. And we tried to incorporate because we figured, like you're saying, Ron, people got to stretch. And I believe that the worship service ought to have components to it that will bless everybody in certain ways. But actually, I couldn't agree more. They're not an impetus to step out and do what was said. That's got to come in like what you're saying now.
Right.
But that worship, for example, I miss a choir more than you can imagine. I mean, a choir with the orchestra. My church had it. The last church I was in, Ron Rosette, had a choir and orchestra. When that orchestra hits and that choir comes on full blast with the prayer, I mean, it lifts the spirits of people right up out of their chairs. And music basically touches everybody, just like King David said, even the wolves, he takes the harp out and they all sit and listen, kind of. But in any way, you know what I'm saying. So I think the worships, we looked at this, began to be something that can meet specific needs. And that's why we ended up getting into when the devil let the drums in the church with Truth. Remember the singing group Truth? Poor Roger, I mean, he had to leave the premises one time with a big concert because the deeds of the devil's drums. I mean, people get it all whacked. I like a service where you can be blessed and moved by the music and maybe by a testimony and this and the other, and somebody who exegetes the word of God properly so that I know that I'm hearing the truth, but I'm not hearing it arrogantly. I'm not hearing it denominationally. I'm hearing it humbly and wholly from the word of somebody who's growing as a pastor. And then how do you meet these other needs? What do you do? I forget the name of the men's group that we had that kind of picked this thing up. He was the head guard at the prison, Folsom. No, the other one, San Quentin. And he was the head guy. I didn't argue with him. He could do anything he wanted. Anyway, Ron, he was a great guy, Dick. And he started something along that line. I'm sure you've come away since then, I'm sure. But this was in the 80s and 90s, and they began to get guys doing these different things. And there's a plethora of things that they could be involved in this way, but I think you got to touch their heart first, like you're saying. And boy, nothing like a grandpa, huh, Ron?
Oh, yeah. Right. Again, if you got a grandpa or a father,
come in there.
And especially now, as I said, it's gotten worse. And so a lot of the young men that you meet anywhere run into it all. You can just about count on about 30% have never known a father. They've never known an actual relationship with a man in their home. So it's like, you ask the questions, okay, then how do you understand manhood? How do you understand godly manhood? I mean, what's your role? What's your responsibilities? You ask, okay, where do they learn those things? And unfortunately, with the generation now, the 17 to 35-year-olds, most of their interactions is social media and through other forms of media. There's not a whole lot of close relationships among them. Yes. Matter of fact, I would challenge most men. You could talk to 100 men, and I'd be willing to wager you that 85 to 90% of the men that you talk to are not connected with any relationship with any other men. I mean, not a real relationship. Yeah. So it's like, okay, so where do they learn to be men? What do they understand how do they understand the role God's called them to be? Now they can hear a lot of sermons about, being strong and being courageous and, loving and blah, blah, blah. They can hear those sermons and understand the text, at least intellectually. Yeah. But then the guy goes, okay, so what's it look like at work? What's it look like in my home? And that's the idea of coming alongside somebody. I mean, it's one of those things. I've had a pastor after we talked about this whole thing going, this is actually amazing. This is phenomenal. And I every time I bite my tongue because I want to say you have 4 gospels that talks about a guy who spent every day walking, doing life with 12 guys. Yeah, it's not new, buddy.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That's it's most of it. I mean, the most significant interactions with those guys in everyday circumstances. Yeah, he preached to crowds. Yes, he did miracles in front of folks. Yes, but when the crowd was gone and when the miracle was over, he left with those disciples, and he walked through them. And Paul, He's got Timothy and Titus. There's like 14 people Paul mentions in just the book of I probably put in Galatians and Colossians. Wait a minute, why did Paul have all these companions? They're Timothy's and Titus and folks like that who actually walked with him. Who kind of lived with him for a while. Yeah. Why? He poured into them, in which he tells Timothy, Timothy, listen, all the stuff you've seen me do and seen me experience, what you've heard me say and heard me teach, now you pour into faithful men who might be able to pour into faithful men. Exactly. It was always intended for us to pour into another man, not sitting in the auditorium and listen and somehow grow from that. That's only part of it.
Yeah, it's a two-way grow. You betcha. Yeah. You got to go and give it to somebody else too. Discipleship's critical. Yeah,
sure. And men, it's more. I'd say more in line with men than with women. It's women it seems to be naturally relational. We just are. Men, on the other hand, we're relational if there's camaraderie, if there's some relationships there, but at the same time, we don't gravitate toward it. It takes some actual effort and work on your part to do it. But when you form those bonds, but when you do get there, that's solid, and they grow like crazy. Amen. But again, unfortunately, churches aren't. And I understand how we got here. It's just that churches are not sort of designed and they don't function in a way we're focusing on that. We focus on the larger group, and we usually focus on and cater toward the largest part of the group, which unfortunately usually women and children. And men, on the other hand, they stand back and they're not obstinate and they're not, disrupting things. They just, I'm not engaged. No one asks me anything.
Yeah, you've got the largest group in the history of the church ready to fill in those spots and grow, called senior adults. And senior adults, there was around 4,000 of them there when my last church. I worked with a lot of them. Man, they don't want to sit around, Ron. They're like you. They say, "How can I help?" I assigned them. Would you help this? Would you help them? And then they follow through. They're fired up. And
most wasted resource the church has. Wasted resource.
Exactly.
Well, and I think the sign of a good church is all the generations. And I am very concerned when I go into a church that lacks an active senior community. The church that we're involved with, there's so many active seniors, and I love it. And I've also seen how good it is for health and morale. And, Ron, when you were talking about men and Jesus and all of them, they're a tribe. I don't know how else to describe it. They're like this little tribe that's just out there. And it was the same for women in the Bible. They would go into the tent in their menstrual cycle. And so what would happen is women would be together 5 to 7 days, and they start talking about real stuff. When those guys are going to battle and they're figuring out how they're going to eat, where they're going to say, you're talking about real stuff. And I think people have such a longing for community, and it's so lacking. So if you're a guy, why are you going to show up and have some surface level conversation? You're just not interested, right? Do something, go kill something, like not a person, animal, whatever. Exactly. And you guys talk about it, and then you have your stories and your bonding and all of that. And I think that if we can figure out as a church, just being the body of Christ, how to create that, we would have so much impact, because everybody wants to belong.
Amen.
Yes.
There's a lot of membership, but not belonging.
Yes. Yeah. Well, quite frankly, we figured that out.
Good.
We offer the church. We offer the church.
Let me throw
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I wanted to throw something out you guys, and you chewing it in light of the two things you were just sharing. I was told by somebody today who deals with woke people all the time. Ron is just
poor thing.
He's solid, but he takes a beating sometimes. He's just a great young man. And this is what was told to me, and that they think. And where does that fit in what you were just saying? They told me, well, what they said, what you don't know is that we have evolved. We are not like the Americans that you are. We are not the people you are. We've evolved in this nation. We're smarter, and we have a better grasp of the reality of what really is and isn't. And therefore, when we do things, it is going to naturally be better than what you're doing because we've evolved. We're past those things you talk about. That was it, basically. What do you think?
Did they say evolve or devolved?
That was what I was going to say. Exactly. Yeah.
There you go.
You know, water always seeks the lowest level. You know, it does. That's its nature, and
Yes.
and that's what it does. Let me throw out some statistics for you that I got in, from reading, and then an observation. Less than 40% of the attendees in church, in the American church today, are male. Less than 40%, and then 20% of the women in the church are sitting alone. Interesting. Overseas, the ratio is 10-1, women to men. The observation is that men pray less, witness less, read less. But here's the kicker. Men are not less religious. But if you look, for example, at rival faiths, if you look at Muslims, you look at Buddhists, you look those statistics are flipped.
Upside down.
And it's interesting that the American church seems to be the one that I don't know how to put words to it. The American church has missed the mark. It's not that men don't want to be a part. It's not that they don't want to be discipled, but we have multi-generations now. For example, I was too old. We didn't have kindergarten when I started school. Back before the turn of the century, I started first grade, but I didn't have a male teacher until I was in the 5th grade.
Wow.
Kindergarten teachers are typically females, and I'm that's great. I'm not saying that's a terrible thing. I'm just saying from early on, children get a skewed picture of what we're all supposed to be alike.
Yes.
And so I would love to see, give you an example. The church I serve in Carpinteria, we needed some nursery volunteers. Well, we got them. There wasn't a problem with that. There were 7 women and 1 guy. One man volunteered for nursery, and he had a blast, and the kids loved him to death. It was just we need to see those kind of pictures. I think that's important to do. But I have a question, and maybe I remember Lane the last time he was with us. He said they need a battle to fight, a kingdom to build, and a beauty to rescue. That's what he said. And let me repeat that in case people didn't hear him before, but they need a battle to fight, a kingdom to build, and a beauty to rescue. And I think that hits an important nail on the head. I think that's absolutely true. Considering, and I'd like for y'all to jump in on this, considering what we're seeing in the world today, the world seems to be being apart. Do you think that it's possible that the American church can wake up and begin to address the emptiness that people feel in significant ways? Is that you understand my question? A fair question. For example, after 9/11, churches were full; they were packed, and so did it take something like that to wake up? I think anytime we have a crisis, whether it's a tornado or a hurricane or a 9/11, whatever, I just think that's a interesting way that God is saying, wake up, wake up. And how can we be ready to address the wake up part? Or do we come down on the other side of the equation and say, well, after all this is over, things will go back to normal and we'll be fine? But do we want normal? That's the question.
That was, I think that was in my opinion, that was COVID. And unfortunately, the church responded in a less than Christ-like manner, I put it. And it's like everybody was waiting for it to be over to get back to normal. And and my brain wants to explode, going, guys, listen, normal wasn't addressing the culture. Normal wasn't establishing the kingdom of God here, which may have been why God allowed it to take place, because it shakes the church. The shaking is always intended to get people's attention, but also to get them to repent. And I just don't see a lot of repenting that took place through this whole COVID shaking thing. But you're right, Paul. I think that I guess my angst is that there's a remnant of churches who sincerely and deep in their hearts want to have this sort of passionate kind of relationship and involvement in people's lives and push and sending people out. But the vast majority, I fear, aren't there. And I even get to a point where I think that there may even be a situation where they don't have the vision, the heart, the things to even recognize the need for it. They are comfortable the way things are going. I'm sorry, we have says Will has a phone call. Is that?
We have Will Cintron. What
Will
do you
Cintron?
got for us, Will?
Sorry.
He's on mute.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm unmuted now.
There you go.
Hi.
There you go. Hi, Will.
How are you, Will?
Hi. I've been trying to connect, and I lost a lot what you guys were talking about. But I just lost you. I don't hear you anymore.
Oh, you're still here. You're still there.
Gotcha.
Okay.
We were listening.
Okay.
We got you.
No, I was just listening to you guys talking about young men and the need to for guys to connect with them and just mentor them. And I remember one of the camps, the training camps that we went to, there were two young guys who lost their father at a very young age. And I think like they were 6 and 9 or something, about that age. And here they are, they came to this camp and they were, I think, 19 and 20 or 21. And then one of them said, "We don't know how to be men." And it was just like, wow, so you came to the right place.
Yeah.
And they both they were one of the guys at the camp. Their dad was his best friend. And so he kept in touch with them, and they had moved out to Arizona, but he kept in touch with the wife and the 2 kids. But long distance makes it kind of hard, so he really couldn't, really feed into them.
Yes.
But when they came up, they gleaned so much out of those 4 days from just a bunch of different men who just speaking into their lives. They both, although they were raised Christian, but they didn't have that real connection. And they both accepted Christ. And this is it was November. We're in Arizona, Prescott.
Right.
And they wanted to be baptized. And there was a little stream in the camp, and there was an area in the stream that was about a 2 or 3 foot little pool. And one of them, I think was the younger one, was baptized in that freezing cold water.
I'm going to say a little chilly.
But just to see that and to see those young men, just really, you see their eyes light up, and just to connect with the guys and really listen to what older men have to say and just share with them any questions they had about how it is to be a man, how to one guy, he had a girlfriend and they were getting a little too physical, and we just told him to cut it out. If you're a Christian now, be a man and honor her as God honors you and her. And if you're really in love with her and you see her as being your wife someday, then just do it right, and or cut the relationship. And he was really thinking about it. He was really
Will, I was reading the other day along the line of what you're saying. Let me throw this out to everybody. The devil this one thing I was reading, I'm trying to remember where it might have been David Jeremiah, but the devil's big tool has been to do away with manhood, period, pretty much in the world that we live in today. So they don't know what they are, let alone how to be a man.
Yes.
So the family's gone, like Ron's been saying, and everything. That's what's so exciting. I like to watch Tank and Steph with the boys and see how they relate, you know. But if the world and the nation, they don't know whether they're a boy or a girl, and it or a pink rabbit, you know, and you're looking at these things, you know, whatever my name is today. That should be even a bigger door for men and godly men today. Like we know that you're doing well with Lane Davis, but these coming together, that should be a door. Just what Ron's saying for the church to take a good look. Men, if men don't know that they're men, then why are they complaining when women run roughshod over this, that, or the other? But the women's livers of our time, where are they? Where'd they go? I mean, everybody is gone. So it seems to me that would be a big opportunity for us to play off of, to do things for these young men like Ron was talking about. What do you guys think?
I think again, you're right. It's just like you said, senior men in particular are the most ignored and wasted resource the church has. And the second part, or another part of that, would be the most wasted opportunity is the fact that this big void that's in society, that homelessness and fatherlessness, and then the whole attack on manhood. Period. There's a hole there, and one of the things I would try to get my volunteers who were going to train to go into the prisons. Right, you tell them that 99% of the men that you're going to have contact with have never had a father in the home, not a single one. So here's the deal: you're walking in an environment feeling nervous about whether or not you're qualified to do this. Think of it this way: every guy you meet in there is a man struggling for air and looking and thirsty for water. You're water and air to him. If a guy's dying of thirst and he can't breathe, the thing most valuable to him is water and air. You be the water and air. If you come in and you offer yourself and offer what God has done in your life to that young man, you'll have to fight him off. Here's an example. One of the guys I meet with, I meet with a number of guys weekly, one-on-one and sometimes with a group, but mainly one-on-one. One of those young men, Army vet now, 35 years old. We were in a family gathering in a apartment complex game room, little game house. So he was on the other side of the building at a table by himself on Christmas, watching me with my nephews and playing around and showing them how to play pool, and then having conversations with him. He came out of the blue, walked over to me, startled me from behind, and asked me a question. He said, I watch you interact with your sons. He said, I've never had anybody do that with me. He said, I've never had anybody teach me, show me how to be a man. He said, would you be willing to talk once in a while?
That's right.
And I didn't have to approach him. I didn't have to. That's how big of a need it is. The church doesn't understand this hole that's out there that needs to be filled, and it's begging for them. But the deal is, I need to be able to do something different than what I'm doing. One other story, and then I'll stop. One of the prime and main things that pastors tell them when I meet with them and talk with them about helping them to reach men, they'll all say, well, we've tried all kinds of stuff, and men just really aren't engaged, and they really don't commit to anything, and they just really won't engage. And I go back to my old story about the Cowboys. I said, Pastor, if I stood in front of your church and said the Cowboys suck, what would your men's reaction be? And usually they'll laugh. Okay, why are you laughing? Because he knows better. Every guy in there was react in a very emotional way. If I start asking the guy, okay, tell you what, hey, tell me why the Cowboys don't suck. Well, our defense is number one, such that, our offense last year did such and such, and we did this last year, and we came this close to a playoff, and I, me, and my.
There you go.
So how many of you guys actually been on a Cowboy field before? Anybody? Okay. Well, how many of you guys know a Cowboy player? Just one, met one. You might have one or two guys out of 200. then why do you keep saying we, our, and my? What's the ownership here? So, Pastor, and I have friends, a friend that used to work at the headquarters. The average guy spends $1,800 a year on game gear. The average guy at a game spends anywhere from $250 to $300 on things in the stadium. And I'm going, Pastor, let me ask you a question. How many of your guys walk around and talk about our men and our church and our God? You know, how many are sold out that way? How many will spend every dime and jeopardize their relationship to come here? All right, so what does Jerry Jones know that you don't know? So, because apparently men do commit, men will become a part, and men will be active, and they'll defend it to the death. What does he know that you don't know? All right, fine, then let me show you that. Because men, there's no such thing as men won't commit. Men will commit and die for something if they find value in it.
That's right.
There's this ministry around here that I don't even know what it's called, but one of the guys was showing me, and they do this like 3 or 4 day kind of dude ranch camping, try to kill each other in a circle and make chili over the fire. And I mean, I watched the summary video and I was half laughing, half thinking, okay, don't die. And he was telling me what an amazing experience it was. They all asked when they could come back, when they could do it. So, I mean, maybe, you know, if you had a team, maybe that's your thing. You just have a church team that's out there doing whatever, right?
Well, people would be surprised. My wife thinks when we have she goes to our national conference and our regional conference, right? She's goes to them every day here and there. She thinks it's the silliest thing ever because we go to our national conference, everybody from all over the country, right? The first day you arrive is registration, but the very next thing you have to do is go to your group from your region and develop your team. You need a team mascot and a team name. And you're going to have that all week long. The conference is 5 days. And all week long, you're going to have teams competing. Every session starts with some kind of competition. And some of it is the dumbest, goofiest stuff to my wife ever. You know. And by the end of the week, what's the big deal? At the end of the week, one of the teams wins. Well, get the points calculated throughout the week, and then the winning team gets this goofy, dumb-looking trophy that nobody wants. But the rule is you have to take your trophy home you usually got to fly with it on a plane, and then you decorate it and bring it back next year. Yeah. That trophy has been around for 12 years.
Oh, goodness.
Bragging, right?
And she doesn't get it. She says it's so stupid. I said, Roz, you don't understand. Men, all of us, there are all these men here. Competition breeds this camaraderie. It's built into us. So it's a part of the technique of reaching men and getting us to build camaraderie. It makes no sense to her, but I'm saying it's guys. If you don't understand that, you're going to miss it.
To your point, Ron, one of the greatest testimonies to kids today, I think, and boys, is to watch some of the NFL players or collegiate players, and there's a few yo-yos in there, very well.
Yeah, right.
But I see a lot of them reach over the opposite team, help a guy up. Somebody that's clobbered, that you see this sportsmanship. Yeah. And of course, we saw it when that young man almost died. Those are the kind of things, that camaraderie. You're right on. That's so important. Yeah. Stephanie, do you think? What was I going to ask you? Please, Ron. Good. Yeah. Let me get one of my memory pills. Just a minute. No.
Well, so last night the boys had a big sports award, and I've been. We have 5 kids and they were all athletes. And so I've been to a lot of banquets. This was not like one I had ever been to. And one of the things that they do, steal this if you're an athletic coach, the captains of each team, there were like 5 or 6 teams, make the paper plate awards, and they're kind of jokes, right? So they draw them, and like one of mine got the Jolly Roger because he's inspiring and happy, whatever. And then one of them is very loud, so he got the intercom. They're running around with that. These boys are running around with this stuff they have a huge state championship thing. No, it's all the paper, and they're razzing each other, and it's this whole, they all go crazy. I mean, it's funny and it's sweet. It's also completely free. But
let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
When is the last time you seen it in a church?
Never. I've never even seen it at a work. It's always so serious.
Yes.
And Craig likes to give joke awards for mission trips. Like he's given some really funny things that we've put in the mail to commemorate odd things that happen. People love it. So I think you guys are jokesters. Like you're responsible where you need to be, but the rest of the time you don't want to be. So there's got to be a way to make this lightheartedness, and then also space for the deep stuff. But that's not probably going to be with the women and children.
Well, again, I mean, and that's the thing you try to help men's leaders and pastors understand. If you do not build the camaraderie, you won't go deep. You know, again, when Paul talks to Timothy, right? It's everything I read tells me that Timothy was with Paul in Ephesus. He's with him in a couple of places, right? What happens to Paul in Ephesus? He stands up. He wants to preach in the market. He disrupts some business there, and all the people come and say they're going to kill you. They can move you out of here. Timothy was with him. Right?
Yeah, so you know, in the Greek, that's where Timothy said, "Hey, Paul, I think we picked the wrong place." Talk about that very often. No, go ahead.
But you know, but the unique thing is, there's nothing that indicates that Timothy ran away.
That's right.
He was with him, right? So and everything about the way Paul prays for Timothy, it bound their hearts together.
Amen.
It's something about that about the teaching and the experience, you know, kind of solidify the relationship there. And you can find those throughout the whole scripture. Yeah. And my question to pastors, where does that take place in your church, among the men in your church? Where does it take place? If you don't have it, you're missing the mark here.
Well, it's kind of like Paul said. Remember, Paul, the 5, what are they, Ron? The 5, do you remember, Steph? The 5 F's, the 5 B's. They're always judging unwittingly in some denominations. There's 5 B's you're judged on.
Like baptism and buildings and budget, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's it. So they rev them up on that, and all the guys want is what you're talking about, Ron. That's right.
Well, what I love about that story, though, too, like Ron, the biblical one, and then even you at the apartment complex, was that there was a desire for what they saw. There was something about the person. There was something about you that was intriguing. And there wasn't a conversation of, well, what's your resume? What's your list of things you've done wrong? Oh, you messed up here. Because what you're doing first is building relationship. And I think that's the key, is everybody needs to know that they're loved. And unfortunately, a lot of churches have not done that well. You know, we're a lot of broken people, and we can be, you know, mean or very judgy. And all of us have a few somethings we're working on. Right. And so I think that's that coming with a commonality or a relationship building is huge.
We gotta watch this time, but I really believe that what you said, you just nailed it again. The older we get, we're part of that group, those that have been younger longer. So those that have been younger longer, we frankly come to the place, like Steph's point, we don't really care what somebody thinks. We want to love folks. We want to make sure that they know that, hey, we believe, we take by faith, and we really believe, and we see things happen like your stories. Well, we got stories we could all share, and we believe it. I'm sorry if you don't believe it, and you've progressed and you've evolved beyond me. I'll tell you, you're not going to evolve beyond God. You might want to listen to what we're saying, but more than that, just reaching out and putting a hand on a shoulder or having that lunch or talking with them. I've got a guy coming tomorrow I haven't seen since 1964. I haven't seen this guy, and he watched the show, and he's coming all the way here, driving, just to spend a couple of days and do exactly what Ron and Paul are saying there, Steph, to hang out and just talk. He said, you and my dad, he says, your dad was so special to me back in high school, and he said, you've done whatever, and I have no idea. I shared Christ, took him to church with us, but anyway, he stayed the line. He loves the Lord. He's conservative, been through some tough water, but so I'm going to be doing what you're saying tomorrow. Pray for me, Ron. Next couple
praise God.
Well, I tell you what, you guys are awesome, and I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we didn't have our speaker tonight, but I don't think you can top these folks. They bless my life every time I hit the button. Boy, it's good to see you, Ron. We're glad you're safe, and Roz, and everybody's going well.
Thank you, brother.
You betcha. And we're praying for Tank too, and Steph and the boys. Wow, it's great. If you can ever pull it, we should get the boys on the show sometime. Wouldn't that be great? Ron, let them shout a word.
I could convince them.
Yeah. Tell them they get homemade prizes that we give, like micro communication and Skipper.
They
Jolly
probably would. Then they would be interested.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to tell you one thing just before we go. We've only got like a minute, but we're going to ask Steph if she would share again, which we appreciate. Things are tight everywhere, but we sure could use your help, Steph.
Well, we thank you guys for always showing up, listening to us here live or on the different platforms, the BBS Radio app, all the social medias. You can find everything there is to find out about us at bbsradio.com/raising expectations. You'll see right there up at the top, there's how you can connect and listen. And then there's how you can donate, which is really helpful. It takes money to make this happen. And we just really appreciate, foregoing your coffee or, whatever, a little lunch. You never know how far that goes. Everybody adds up their $5, $10, right? And so there's instructions on how you can do that and how you can contact Pastor Joe directly if you need to. You can also find out about past shows and learn about all the co-hosts. There's a slew of information on there. And then also Pastor Joe's book, Craig's book. And then I wanted to ask Ron if he would share how we could find out more information about the 10,000 Spiritual Fathers. Is there a spot for that ministry?
We got 1 minute. Put it out there, Ron.
Yeah, we actually put on a website. It's called spiritualfathers.com.
Okay.
Well, that's good. I like that.
Spiritualfathers.com.
Okay.
We're guys. We try to keep it simple.
Thank you.
Spiritualfathers.com. Again, orientation has just started this month, and we'll go through to the end of the year and then start another wave of orientation and training. And we actually come in and train them in, put together in sort of triads and tribes, and then they go from there and find young men, and then they encourage one another. There you go, right there.
Thank you, TJ. Look at that.
Our producers and program guys are the best in the world. Look at this.
They are.
Fantastic. There you go.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Spiritualfather.com. Look it up now tonight and do some reading and pray for Ron and that ministry, and for Paul and his ministries, things that are going, and Steph, just pray for 24/7 with those guys and all the things that are going. Think back, we can remember it was sure a lot of fun, but there was a lot of stuff going too. Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. I'm looking and I'm seeing this 55, the big 55 just hit us. And Ron, we're so glad to see you. We missed you. We're excited what's going, and it's great to have you guys. We were going to send back to the saddle for you again from Gene Autry, but we couldn't think of the words, so we'll get you next time. All right. Next week we have Dr. Cintron and Will, and they're going to share about some exciting new things. Ready to hear what's going on. All right.
Happy trails to you until we meet again.
Yeah, there goes the ratings. Anyway, we got it. Just skyrocketed.
It is shot up 1,000%, Ron. Come on. We got it. We got it. We're tough men. We got it.
That's right. And your camaraderie. And thank you for supporting that camaraderie, Steph. Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, God bless you and keep you. Look to him all week. Great things are ahead for you. God bless. We'll see you later.
God bless you guys.
Bye, y'all.
Friends, thanks for joining us on this week's program of Raising Expectations. We profoundly hope you found it engaging and at times humorous, but most of all, uplifting, so that we may, with you, one topic at a time each week, become more encouraged to move forward to an exciting future in, as we always say, this thing called life in America today. So let not your hearts be troubled, your family, finances, faith, freedom. It can be a great future as we talk, listen, respect, and pull together. Please let me hear from you. You can reach me at 972-922-8556. That's 972-922-8556, or Joe Schofield on Facebook or LinkedIn. It'd be a pleasure to know you, and we hope you'll listen in again next week on the BBS Radio Network.